Rent to Rent Serviced Accommodation. What is it and how does it work? Hey, my name's Chris Peel from Property Abundance, and in this video we are going to explore this question. What is Rent to Rent Serviced Accommodation and how can you start making money from this strategy today? Well, to do this, firstly I want to break down some of these concepts and explain some of these concepts to you to start with. So first of all, what is rent to rent? Okay, rent to rent or R to R. So rent to rent is what we call an acquisition method. Okay, this is a way of getting properties that you can then use to be able to do what you want with. Now, when you're rent to renting a property, you are simply having a lease agreement with the owner of that property. It's very different though from when you as an individual are renting a property because you do this through a business. So we have to have the appropriate contracts to rent it as a business. You can't use a standard tenancy, AST or rental agreement that you would use as a private individual. So we use a company-let agreement to rent a property from an owner with that owner's permission for us to do what we want with it, i.e. rent it out to our clients. So rent to rent is simply the process of acquiring a property by renting it from someone with that permission in the contract for you to do what you want with it. But where we combine it with serviced accommodation is where we can start making some really, really great returns. Now, if you were to do a rent-to-rent serviced accommodation, you would want to be aiming for an average of £1,000 per month per property deal. Okay, £1,000 a month per property deal from a house, by the way, that you don't need to own. So the huge power of this strategy is that the earning potential is massive because you haven't got to save up deposits, you haven't got to save up stamp duty, you haven't got to pay legal fees to set these agreements up, which are the three biggest costs involved in buying properties to use for your own purposes. So if you haven't got to pay deposits, haven't got to pay legals, and haven't got to pay stamp duty, all of a sudden your investment to get one of these is significantly lower. Now, investment-wise, we're looking at around about £5,000 to £6,000 per deal. Okay, £5,000 to £6,000 to invest per rent-to-rent serviced accommodation. Now, the cheapest one of these I've ever done was just £1,000 because everything was kind of already done. All I had to do was pay the first month's rent. The most expensive one of these I've done was about £30,000, but that was a huge building. So, if the average is around about £5,000 to £6,000, and you're going to make about £1,000 a month, well, let's say you invest $6,000 and you're making 12k profit a year, you can see that straight away, you're looking at doubling your money every single year from the investment you put in versus the profit that you get out. So that's why this is such an exciting strategy for anybody looking to start or scale an existing property business. So what is serviced accommodation? Serviced accommodation is application strategy. This is what we do with the property once we've acquired it using the rent-to-rent model. But when we're running a property as a serviced accommodation unit, the big difference here is that instead of renting it out on a long-term 6+ month tenancy agreement to a single individual or to a private family, we are renting this property out by the night to people traveling to the area. Now, they could be staying as little as one night, all the way up to multi-month bookings. Okay, so we have a much more flexible use of the property, and that's why this is such a popular strategy and why it's such in high demand, because it is flexible. You're adding value to this property by providing this flexibility. Now, another way that you add value to this compared to a traditional let is that you have everything in the property for people to use. With a standard tenancy, with a normal tenancy, when you rent a house, normally it comes as a skeleton, doesn't it? It's empty, maybe it's furnished. You know, maybe you've got a bed, maybe if you're lucky you've got a mattress, but that's pretty much where it ends. Okay, you might have a couple of bits of furniture in there as well. With a serviced accommodation unit, when somebody moves in, there is an expectation from that client that the property comes fully equipped. Now that means not only do you have a bed, but you have a really nice mattress. You have the bed fully dressed with fresh quality linen. You've got fresh towels in there for you to use that no one's used before, or that are washed rather. You've got everything in the kitchen that you need to be able to cook a meal. You've got the TV in there. It's like walking into a hotel room, but instead of it being just a room, you have the whole apartment. So that is what serviced accommodation is. Now, the key difference here as well is that with serviced accommodation, we charge by the night. Okay, so we're not charging a monthly rate. Well, we could charge a monthly rate, but generally speaking, our prices are nightly. Now, you do get longer term bookings where they want a fixed monthly rate, but they are still, because of this extra value that you've added by giving them the flexibility of the length of booking and also by adding value to the actual offering within the house, you are still charging significantly more per month than it costs you to acquire that property when paying the monthly lease. So, what do we need to know about running a serviced accommodation unit? Well, look, there are several key steps that we need to get right. Okay, firstly, you've got to choose the right area. Okay, so choose the area. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I mean your area that you're going to invest into your serviced accommodation units has to have demand for short let bookings. Okay, so if you're in a tiny little village in the middle of nowhere where no one really travels, don't set up a serviced apartment there because you're not going to get bookings. There has to be something that draws people to the area for them to want to stay there short term. Now, the big demand factors that bring people to an area short term are things like hospitals, business districts, tourist attractions, universities, building projects, infrastructure projects. These things that bring people to an area to do a specific thing and then they go home to their main area of residence as well. Okay, so firstly, it's very important that the area has demand. Okay, now the different type of demand will determine the pricing that we're able to choose as well. So when we're checking our area out, not only do we need to understand what the demand is, but we need to understand what the prices in the area are as well. Because again, we need to know when we launch our apartment how much we can reasonably charge while remaining in line with the local market. Because if the local market says it's £100 a night and you start trying to charge £300 a night, you're not going to get many bookings. Equally, if your local market supports £300 a night and you only charge £100 a night, you're leaving £200 a night on the table and you're wasting profits. So we need to check the demand and see who's traveling to the area and what's bringing people to the area. And we need to look at our competitors to see what pricing they're charging so we understand what kind of pricing the market supports. So that's the first thing, is picking the area. The next thing, once we've understood the area and we understand who's traveling there, is to be able to choose the right property. Now again, this will be determined by the type of demand you have in the area. So if you have a lot of people traveling to an area for work, for example, if you're, let's say, setting up an apartment next to a big corporate district where there are lots of head offices and offices that employ corporate staff that maybe have consultants traveling to them, maybe have customers coming in, suppliers coming in, maybe have teams of IT contractors coming in, then these are all higher end clients. Okay, they are business travelers. Now, business travelers typically have higher expectations, so we're looking for nicer apartments. They typically have better budgets because it's on a company expense account, so we can charge higher prices, but we need to choose the right type of property for these kind of people. Now, this is where with business travelers, 1 and 2 bedroom flats work really, really well. Take the other market, for example, take the contractor market, which is the one that I specialize in with my business, Trade Stays. We provide 3+ bedroom houses, because our type of clientele is teams of contractors. Now that's normally 4+ people. So we need multiple bedrooms to be able to accommodate them. So when we're choosing that property, we need to think who's going to be traveling there, driven by the type of demand in the area, and then we provide the type of property that's going to be relevant to that target audience. Now once we've chosen our property and we've sourced it using the rent-to-rent strategy, we need to set up the property. Okay, so we've got to set it up. Now again, when we're setting it up, again, think about the type of people that are traveling there. If you're going for the family market, okay, so maybe you've gone, I'll give you a good example from my own portfolio. So we have a property that's in Russell Square in central London, literally a 2-minute walk from Great Ormond Street Hospital, big children's hospital. Now, all the clients that stay in that property, bar a few tourists here and there, but the vast majority of clients we have staying in that property are families who are staying nearby to the children's hospital who have sick children. So they typically travel with other children. They typically want to be there because their child's receiving medical care in the hospital. So they want a home that's near to the hospital so they can be there for their child. So in this instance, when we're setting up a property for that type of client, we make sure we include baby changing facilities. We make sure we include high chairs. We make sure we include travel cots. We make sure we put board games and books into the property so any other kids that they've got with them have something for entertainment while they're there. And we really try and cater that property towards a family market. So when you're setting it up, make sure you put the things in there that the type of client that you're going to be attracting is going to be demanding. Now, once you've set it up, really, really important that you get that photographed. Okay, now I see it time and time again where people just grab out their phone, go click, 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 take a few photos, stick it on Airbnb, cross their fingers and hope for the best. And then wonder a few months later why they're not making any money. It's because they haven't done it right. Okay, you need to get professional photography. You need to get people to see your property in its best light. Every single time somebody clicks on your listing and views it on Airbnb or Booking.com or any of the other channels out there, they need to see your property in its best representation. So, big trap that people fall into when they're setting up their serviced apartments is trying to do it on the cheap. Okay, trying to cut costs up front. I recommend that you do not do that, especially when it comes to actually photographing that, because images are your single biggest marketing tool. So once we've set it up, once we've got it photographed, that leads us nicely onto actually marketing that property. Now, by the way, if you're finding this video useful, if you're liking the tips that I'm giving you here, please make sure you drop a like, drop a comment from what was your best tip on this video, and make sure you subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss content like this straight out of my own 7-figure property business. Okay, so when it comes to marketing the property, there are 2 ways we can market our property. There is our OTA strategy and there is our direct strategy. Now, what is an OTA? An OTA is an online travel agent. These are sites like Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, TripAdvisor, Vrbo, the list goes on. So we need to make sure that we are advertising our property on all of these sites. Now, they do charge you money to do this, but only if they take you bookings. Okay, so they charge you a commission on each booking that they receive on your behalf. Now, typically the rate is around about 15%. Some charge a little more, some charge a little less. So we can average that out, that we'll get bookings from here for a cost of about 15%. Now that's good because it means it's free advertising and you only pay when you get bookings, but we also need to factor that into our profitability margin. So when you're looking for the right property, factor this number into your costs of running that property as well. Now with OTAs, the best strategy you can use is to be as diverse as possible. Okay, again, I get people on our mentorship program that come on with established business. We've got some guys right now who joined a couple of months ago now who have already got a 6-figure property business, wanted to scale it up to 7 figures. So the first thing we did with those clients was deep dive, or show me what you're doing right now in your marketing, talk me through everything. And at the time, all they were doing was Airbnb. Now they'd just advertised on Airbnb and they'd already managed to grow their 6-figure property business. But to get to a 7-figure property business, you can't be reliant on a single source of business. You just can't. Because that means that all your eggs are in one basket. If Airbnb imposed some kind of restriction, if Airbnb went bankrupt, if Airbnb changed their terms and conditions to become less favorable, there is nothing you can do about it because you rely on them for your business. So the first thing we did with these guys, and the first thing you need to do in marketing your property, is be diverse. Okay, advertise on an absolutely wide range of portals. That means focus also on the ones that represent the clients you're trying to attract. Because again, going back to the type of area, if you've got an area that requires a lot of corporate clients, you want to be online with the corporate booking agents, not just Airbnb and Booking.com, but you want to specialize in people like Silverdor, who specialize in providing accommodation for corporate clients. And that will give you a much more targeted approach to your marketing. But we need to be on as many OTAs as we can. We need to advertise very widely. The ones that you will get the majority of your bookings from will be Airbnb and Booking.com, but we can never be overly dependent on just these 2. Now, we also want to complement this strategy with our direct booking and our direct marketing strategy, because this is all very well. Advertising on the supermarkets of the travel world is great. We need to do it. But if we've got to pay 15% from every single booking that comes through there, obviously that's a big chunk out of our profits. So wherever possible, if people are traveling back to the area time and time again, especially relevant for the business market where people do travel a lot to the same place. I mean, take myself, for example. Before I was in property, I was working for PwC, and I would travel to the same place Monday to Friday every week for weeks on end and months and months and months. It was boring. But I represented a very profitable travel booking for somebody. So instantly, I was paying about £200 a night. So if you make that a direct booking instead of an OTA booking, you're making an extra £30 per night that you get to keep, that you don't have to pay out in commission. So wherever you see people booking your apartment that are traveling for business, you want to make sure you're following up with those people and trying to get them to book directly with you next time so that you can keep that commission instead of paying it out. You also want to have a direct booking strategy in your apartment, because while they're in your apartment, you have a captive audience. Okay, now when you've got a captive audience, they're open to messaging. So all of our apartments have our trade stays branded things all over the place. We have framed photos, we have takeaway leaflets, we have coffee mugs, things that people will see to see our brand, see our website, and be directed back to tradestays.co.uk to make sure that next time they come, they know that they can book with us direct, and they understand the fact that we cover the whole country, not just the town that they've booked in this time. And most importantly for them, that they get the best prices if they come to us direct. So you want to have that direct booking strategy as well. Now, to supplement this, we also want to have a one-click website, an OCW, a one-click website where people can book your apartment as easily as if they were on Airbnb. Because again, people like to do things quickly, don't they? People like to get the result quickly. So if we can provide a one-click website, then that's a very good way to be able to direct traffic to it and get those bookings through automatically instead of having to call people up and try and sell them over the phone all the time. I'll do a separate video about the systems that you can use in your business and the software that you can use to do that. If you want to see that video about software you can build into your serviced accommodation business to start automating things, drop a comment down below, let me know that you want to see that so I know there's enough demand for it, and then I'll put it out there. So once we've marketed our property, we also need to think about our operations. Now, our operations, again, are really, really important because this is a lot more hands-on. Okay, if somebody could be staying just one night, then obviously after that person moves out, you need to change the sheets, you need to clean the apartment, you need to get it ready for the next person. So if you got one night booking, one night booking, one night booking, one night booking, there's a lot of changeover work to do here, isn't there? So the most important team that you can have in your serviced apartment business is a cleaning team. Okay, you need to have a good cleaning team that follow your cleaning specification, and you need to instruct them on exactly what you want them to do every time. If you try and do this yourself, you will become very busy very quickly, and that will take you away from growing your business and get you sucked into the small jobs that are easy and cheaper to outsource. And it means you won't have the time to do the bigger jobs like finding your next property, like raising your next £1 million of investment. So it's really important that this gets outsourced from day one, and with that is also the linen. Okay, cleaning and linen. So I only ever work with cleaning companies because we have multiple properties in one area. So if we were to work with something like a one-man band where there's just one cleaner and they do it as their main source of income, as soon as we need two properties changing over on the same day at the same time, we're screwed. So we have to have a cleaning company where they have teams and they can send people to different properties for it to be viable. They also need to be able to deal with the linen for me so that they can wash all the sheets, wash all the towels, make sure everything's fresh and crisp and ready to go for the next clients. So when people move in, it's like a new apartment for them all over again. So super important one, cleaners and linen, and make sure that you have a cleaning specification that they then follow. The next one is access. Again, with lots of people going in and out, we need to make sure that we have an outsourced access solution so that you're not constantly standing outside your apartment waiting to give keys to people to check in. So this is where we use things like key boxes next to the doors and we send the lockbox code to our client. Or if we don't have anywhere suitable to put a lockbox code, we use a solution called Key Nest. Okay, now Key Nest is a really great little company that's online. In fact, they're global now as well, I believe. So they provide single-use codes that you can then give to the client, who takes it to a local shop, gives the code to the owner. The owner, if the code is correct, gives the keys to the client, and then they can just drop the keys back to that shop when they move out. So a really great way of making sure that you don't have to be in multiple places at once, letting people in and out of the apartments. And then we also need to account for running out of board space here, but that says maintenance. I don't know if you can read that. That says maintenance down the bottom. Now again, when people are paying larger sums, paying a nightly rate, there is an expectation that if something breaks, it gets fixed quickly. So you need to have maintenance people that you trust, that you've worked with before, and that you can just simply pass the number of to the guests and say, here you go, this person's going to come and sort this for you straight away. So we want to have those pre-existing arrangements before we start trying to run our property and having to find someone on emergency call-outs, because that's when it gets really expensive. So make sure you get your cleaners and linen, make sure you get your access sorted, make sure you get your maintenance sorted, and at high level, that is what it takes to run a serviced apartment business. Now, there are much more involved in the details of this, and if you want to learn this properly, and you want to actually start understanding how you can start making double your money every year and £1,000 a month profit, I have set aside some time in my team's calendar. We've got 30-minute slots available right now where you can get a free, no obligation, one-to-one call with one of my team where they'll understand where you are right now, what you'd like to achieve in your property businesses, and the resources you've got available to make that happen. And then based on those variables, we'll give you a step-by-step plan that you should follow, and including your next step to make this a reality for you as well. If you found this video useful, please drop a like in the comment. If you want to get one of those calls booked in, the link is in the description down below. Other than that, guys, I'll see you on the next video. See you soon. Bye-bye.